Hello, welcome back to Introduction to Blender for Maya Users, Part 4, Modeling. In Part 3, we went over the introduction to transforming objects. In Part 4 we'll go over the basics of modeling in Blender, put those transform tools to use in creating and modifying geometry, and how it may relate to what you already know from Maya or another 3D program. Let's get started. When you start a new session in Blender, you will once again be presented with a default cube, a camera, and a light. For this tutorial we won't be using the camera or the light, so I'm going to just hide both of these from the outliner by turning off the little eye icon next to their names. Then go ahead and select the cube, and press delete on your keyboard to delete it from the scene. To add primitives to the scene you will use the add menu, which is similar to the create menu in Maya. This can be done in a couple ways. 1. While in object mode, click on the Add menu at the top of the 3D viewport, and this will drop down a list of objects you can create using this menu. Click on Mesh, and then on Cube to add a cube primitive into the scene. Select the cube, press G, and then move this cube off to the side a bit to the right. Another way to add primitives into the scene is by pressing the Shift, then the A key on your keyboard while hovering in the 3D viewport. This will bring up the same menu as the Add menu previously. Select Mesh, then Cylinder to add a cylinder to the scene at the origin. Don't press any keys or mouse buttons just yet. With the cylinder still selected and outlined in orange. Take a look at the little label that has appeared near the bottom left of the screen. Click on it. It opens up some options for the object you have just created. This is just like making changes to the input section of the channel box in Maya. Notice you can change some settings, such as vertices, the radius and depth of the object. This is a one-time use panel, and only appears when you first create something using the Add menu. Once you unselect the object, or transform it, this window goes away, never to be seen again. So be aware of this as you are creating primitives. If I click off to the side here, that pop-up goes away, and I am left with the mesh I chose to create. Let's zoom into the cylinder a bit to get a better look at what's going on. Notice that the cylinder is a bit low-res because of the number of facets or vertices that I input. Either way, it would still look faceted even if I added more during creation. Blender has a couple ways to smooth this out. First, you can right-click on the cylinder to bring up a context-sensitive menu. Note the first three items: Shade Smooth, Shade Auto Smooth, and Shade Flat. The default when creating new geometry is Shade Flat. Right-click on the object and select Shade Smooth. This is an older feature in Blender, and attempts to smooth out all edges regardless of their angle or intended sharpness. You can tell right away this is probably not what you want. Right-click again and select Shade Auto Smooth. Now you are probably looking at what you intended. The sides are smooth, the top and bottom edges are crisp. And the top and bottom faces are still there, which is fine. Behind the scenes, Blender has added a non-destructive modifier to the mesh. We can see this if we select the mesh, and then click on the blue wrench modifier icon in the Properties menu. This is a modifier. Right-click on the cylinder again, and select Shade Flat. You see the modifier disappear. Go ahead and right-click again, and turn the Shade Auto Smooth modifier back on. Blender uses the angle listed here as the default angle for when a facet should be smoothed or not. This is just like softening an edge in Maya, and then changing the Polysoft Edge input angle to 30 from the default 180. We can spend hours upon hours talking about modifiers and all the wonderful things they do, but as this is just an introduction to modeling video, I'll just touch on a few things that might affect your modeling journey right out of the gate. Number 1 is the Smooth by Angle modifier. Check that off the list. If you enjoy this video, please tap the like button and subscribe to our channel to get notified when new videos are posted. Let's delete that cylinder and add another cube to the scene. Shift-A brings up the Add menu, select Mesh, then Cube. Before clicking on anything else, notice again we have an Add Cube label that has popped up in the lower left. If your previous pop-up was still open when you did your last command, this will pop open automatically. If not, click on it to open the Add Cube pop-up. Because it's a default cube, there aren't many options for this guy. We'll leave him at 2 meters times 2 meters square. With the new cube selected, click on the modifier blue wrench in the Properties area, and then click on Add Modifier. Select Generate, and then Bevel. Slide the amount field up a bit to around 0.25, and then change the segments to 5. Now you can see that this modifier has beveled all the edges by the same amount. Again, to get rid of the facets, right-click on your cube and select Shade Auto Smooth. Notice in the Properties panel, Blender has added the Smooth by Angle modifier below the Bevel one. These are stackable, and as you add more modifiers they will stack in this window. Modifiers are for the most part non-destructive, meaning you can always go back and change settings until you actually apply the modifier, at which point it bakes the changes into the mesh permanently. We'll come back to the modifier panel later in this video and see what happens when we apply a modifier. For now, let's zoom back out a bit and select the original cube on the right. Go up to the Object Mode drop-down menu, click on it, and select Edit Mode. You will notice that your cube turns orange with its vertices, edges, and faces highlighted. Because you had this cube selected when going into Edit Mode, you will be editing this particular cube. Attempting to click on or modify the other cube won't do anything until you go back to Object Mode and reselect another mesh, and then go back into Edit Mode. Makes sense? The difference with Maya, obviously, is that you can be in Object or Edit Mode at any time and modify any mesh within the view. Across the top next to the Edit Mode drop-down are 3 little icons. These represent a select mode of vertex, edge, or face depending on which one you want to work with. Click on the first one, if not already selected, and you will notice the little vertices show up in black on your original cube. Click on one to select it, or click drag to marquee select one or more of the vertices. I'm going to select the one closest to me. Press the G key to bring up the Move gizmo. If the Move gizmo does not come up, then you will have to set your preferences to change Blender into Maya Transform mode. Go up to the Edit menu, select Preferences, and then change the Key Map/Tool keys to Active Tool. Now you can go back and select the vertex you want and hit the G key. Move the vertex up and down a bit. When done, press Ctrl-Z to undo. Next, click on the Edge Select icon and select an edge on your cube. If the Move tool was the last tool selected, it will default into the Move gizmo. Click drag the blue arrow up and down to move the edge and corresponding vertices. Undo this for now. Next, select the Faces Select icon. Select any face on your cube. I'll select the top one. Again, use the Transform tools to move this face up and down a bit. And undo. The keyboard shortcuts for select modes are 1 for vertex, 2 for edges, and 3 for faces. Pressing these numbers will cycle through your selection choice. Let's press the 2 key on the keyboard and make sure we have the Edge Select tool selected. Click on one of the edges at the top of the cube like so. Now hover your mouse cursor over the right edge of the tools until it becomes a 2-sided arrow, then left-click and drag right to show the names of the modeling tools. With the edge still selected on your cube, click on the Bevel tool. Nothing happens yet, but a strange lollipop-looking thing appears pointing to your edge. Click the yellow circle and drag to the right. Release when you want to. Before clicking on anything else, note the Bevel label has popped up in the lower left. Let's open that up. This gives you a lot of options to modify the bevel. But like the previous Add pop-ups, this is a one-time event. You can always undo and start over, but once you change these settings and then unselect the cube, these will be permanent. Let's change some settings. Let's change the width to 0.3 like so. And then let's add in 5 segments. The profile shape defaults at 0.5. Drag this down to -0.5 and let's see what happens. The bevel becomes concave instead of convex. I'm going to change that back to 0.5. At the very bottom, the profile type defaults at Super Ellipse. Click on Custom. Click anywhere on that graph line to add a point, and then drag outwards like so, and then let go. I'm going to up the segments to 10, and then add another point to my bevel profile. You can start to see it taking shape based on my editing the profile. Note, you can orbit, pan, and zoom while in this state. There is also a preset drop-down you can use for a quick starting point. Click on Crown Molding preset. Click back to the default profile, and then click back on Super Ellipse like so. Click to the side to unselect the bevel and cube. Press the 3 on your keyboard, and then select one of the facets on the bevel like so. You can now move this individually from the other facets because this has now been baked into place. Let's zoom back out so you can see your other cube. Press the Tab key as a shortcut to jump between Edit mode and Object mode. Once back in Object mode, click on the cube at the origin with the round edges. Then hit Tab again to toggle back into Edit mode. Zoom in a bit to see what's going on here. Notice that the original cube shape shows up in transparent mode. Because this cube has a modifier on it, it's in a temporary state and still has its original 6 sides. Press the number 3 on your keyboard and then select the top face of the cube. Move this up into the Z direction like so. You will notice that the bevel is not stretching, but readjusting as you modify the original cube shape. That is because the modifier is being applied after the transform, not before. Press Tab again to toggle into Object mode. With that cube at the origin still selected, go over to the modifier panel on the right. On the bevel modifier section, across the top are a few icons. The first one toggles whether or not the effect is seen in Edit mode. Hit Tab again to go into Edit mode. And then click on that little icon. Notice the effect toggles on and off. Hit Tab again to go back to Object mode. The second icon toggles the effect on your viewport. The little camera icon toggles this effect in the render. There is a drop down, and then there is an X, which will remove the modifier completely. Click the drop down menu next to the X. Hit Apply. You notice right away that the bevel modifier disappears. Hit the Tab key again to toggle into Edit mode. The cube has changed. It is now showing the facets as editable elements. Hit the 3 key to select Face Select mode, and click on one of the polygons within a bevel. This is now an editable mesh with permanent changes. FYI, there is a way to paint weights on modifiers, so you can specifically choose what edges have bevels, and which ones don't, or by how much, and all in a non-destructive way. That is, until you apply the modifier. Let's tab back into Object mode. Select both meshes and delete them. Next, we will explore how to add some edge loops to our meshes. Remember, this is just an introduction to some of the tools. I encourage you to dive deeper into each one of these on your own. I'm pressing Shift then the letter A to bring up the Add menu. I'll go to Mesh and then Cube. Make sure our cube is selected, and then let's tab back into Edit mode. Make sure the select box is highlighted and no tools are selected. Hover your mouse near your cube and press Ctrl R. Then move your mouse around a bit. This is a loop cut shortcut. From this angle, you can pick a loop cut going vertical or horizontal in 3 dimensions. While in this mode, left-click and drag where you want the loop cut to be. You can drag this back and forth. Or if you just want it to be centered, then just right-click to get out of the Add Edge Loop mode. A new edge loop will appear in the center of the mesh. While this tool is still active, you can further edit it using the Loop Cut pop-up panel in the lower left corner. Change the number of cuts, and some other modeling options, which I encourage you to play around with. For now, I'm just going to leave this one edge loop cut as is. Pressing Ctrl R again lets you add yet another edge loop. Again, this time I'm just going to right-click so it puts it right in the middle like this so it crosses the other edge loop. I now have a cube that has been bisected in the X and Y direction as shown. This is a great time to show you some of the extrude tool options. Yay! Let's get a good view of the top here. If your loop cut tool is still active, click on the select box tool to go back to select mode. I'm pressing the 3 key for face select. Then I am going to select the face nearest to me on the top of the cube. Over on the tools list, if I hold the extrude region tool, I get a glance at the options available to me. I won't go over all of these, but will touch on a few to give you an idea of what is possible with just the extrude tool. With that upper polygon selected, I'm going to select the extrude region tool. You will notice another gizmo appears with a lollipop and a plus sign inside of it. Drag this plus sign up to extrude the face. There are some minor options you can change before committing, much like Maya has. I'm going to leave this as is. I want to call your attention to the newly created geometry. I chose extrude region, so it took a polygon and extruded it up, leaving the existing structure below intact, much like the behavior you would have with Maya's default extrude tool. Note the edges that were created as the result of the extrude. Let's undo this. Press Ctrl Z a couple times to go back before the extrude. OK. Now with the same polygon selected, go back over to the Extrude Region tool, click and hold on it, and this time select Extrude Manifold. Then click on the lollipop end and drag up. Notice something different? The edge lines are no longer there, and the side faces are now a single polygon. Let's undo this step as well, and get back to our 4 faces on top. Select all 4 faces, then click on the Extrude tool and set it back to Extrude Region. Pull up a bit like so. All 4 faces are extruded. Click on the top face closest to you. Now press G, or select the Move tool, and move this face in the Y-axis like so. Notice what's happening. The polygons are all attached as expected, and we can assume we have a hollow mesh. Let's undo all that, and go back to our original 4 polys. OK. This time with the 4 faces selected, click and hold the Extrude tool, and select Extrude Individual. Click on the yellow lollipop and drag upwards a bit. So far this looks the same as before. But I bet you're thinking what I'm thinking. Select the nearest top poly to you, and press the G key for Move. As you move the face away, notice it's been extruded individually, as the tool suggests. So all 4 faces are now individual pieces. OK, let's Ctrl Z back to our original 4 again. Select the upper face nearest to you like this, with a X or red axis going from front to back in your view. Click on the X in the navigation gizmo in the upper right corner of the 3D viewport like so. This will give you an orthographic view of the side of the cube. Position the view to the lower left a bit to make some room. Then with the top face still selected, click and hold the Extrude tool and select Extrude to Cursor. When you do this, nothing happens at first. Position the cursor a little above the selected face and left click. Then move your mouse around. Holding Ctrl will snap this to a straight extrusion. Then position your cursor to the right of this new face like this, and start to click around in a circle. That's good. Now I can tumble around to see what I've created. This is just a very simple introduction to the Extrude tool. Please explore all the amazing options that Blender can offer. I'm going to tab back to the Object menu, select this weird looking thing, and then delete it. Shift A, and then Mesh, and let's add another cube. Let's tab back into Edit mode. Zoom in a bit. Then select the top face. Make sure the face select icon is selected. If not, press 3 to activate it, then click on the top face of this cube. With the top face selected, press the I key on your keyboard, then click and drag your mouse inwards to insert faces to the top of your cube like this. At this point, with that inner face still selected, click hold on the Extrude tool and select Extrude Region. Push this down into the cube a bit as shown. Press 2 on your keyboard and select the inner 4 edges as shown here. Click the Bevel tool, then click drag the lollipop to form a decent sized bevel. Open the new bevel pop-up window and add 5 segments. Click off to the side to see what we have so far. Click on the 4 edges around the extruded sunken section, and again click Bevel, and click drag the lollipop to form a nice little edge like so. I'm going to go with 5 segments again. Hit the Tab key to toggle back into object mode. Select the mesh, then right-click on it, and select Shade Auto Smooth. You can save this file for later if you want. I'm going to create a new file. I'm going up to File, then New and then General. I'm not going to save. Now I'm going to show you a little bit about subdividing your mesh and the proportional editing tool. First, let's delete the default cube from the scene. I'm going to type Shift, then A to bring up the Add menu, and select Mesh, then Plane. I'll just zoom in a bit to get closer. So this is the default primitive plane. Right now it's a single face. I'd like to add some geometry to this plane, so I can start modifying the surface a bit. With the plane selected, hit the Tab key to toggle into Edit mode. Press the 3 key to select faces, and make sure the plane face is selected. Then right-click on the plane and select Subdivide. Notice that Blender cuts the plane in half both ways, leaving us with 4 faces. Before moving on or clicking anything, let's check out the subdivide pop-up in the lower left. From here, I can add additional cuts before moving on by sliding this number or typing in a number, let's say 20. Okay, now we have a plane with lots of detail, and we can now start to modify the surface of this plane. Press 1 to go into Vertex Select. Select one of the vertices in the middle of the plane like this. Press the G key to bring up the Move gizmo, and then let's go up in Z space a bit. As expected, the single vertex is moved up by itself. But I want this to be a very smooth hill in the middle of my plane. Hit Ctrl Z to undo. To achieve what I want, I can use the proportional editing tool. With the vertex still selected, go up to the top middle area of the 3D viewport and click the icon with the dot and the circle around it. Now lift up on the single vertex. Ah! That's what I wanted, a nice fall off. With the Move tool still selected, open the Move pop-up panel if it's not already open in the lower left. Notice that new options have appeared because you have the proportional editing on. Click drag on the proportional size field to raise or lower this number. Notice its effect on the plane. This is similar to the fall off on a soft select in Maya. Let's undo all this and go back to our flat plane. Let's say I wanted to create a rough surface, like a terrain real quick. I can do that with the proportional editing tool as well. Reselect that center vertex. In the proportional editing tool drop down, select random. Now move the vertex up a bit in Z. Notice what starts to happen. Open the Move pop-up once again, if not already open. Click drag the proportional size up a bit to cover the entire plane. Okay, I like this. I'm going to tab back into object mode now. And zoom in a bit. We are seeing facets, so let's right-click on the plane and select Shade Auto Smooth. But this time that didn't do the trick. Looks like some of the peaks are sharper than the default 30 degrees. Let's turn this back to Shade Flat for a moment. What we need in this case is more detail in this mesh. We can achieve this by adding a modifier. Let's go over to the Properties section and click on the blue wrench. Click Add Modifier, then select Generate, and then Subdivision Surfaces. Right away this starts to look a lot better. We can increase the levels on our modifier if we need to. Let's push this to 2 in the viewer. Alright. Now, when I right-click and select Shade Auto Smooth, I get exactly what I wanted. Okay. I'm going to create a new scene. I'll go to File, New, and then General. No, I don't want to save this file. Alright. A quick demo of using the Join and Separate commands, which are equivalent to the Combine and Separate commands under the Mesh menu in Maya. Select the cube in the viewport. Type Shift-D, and then move your mouse over a bit. You have duplicated the cube. Your choice as well in this mode is to left-click to place it where you want, or press the right mouse button to leave it at the same place as the original. I'll do that. While the two cubes are on top of each other, you might not think anything happened. But looking in the outliner, I can tell I have another cube. I'll make sure the second cube is selected, and then press G, and move it off to the side a bit like so. Let's say you wanted to combine these two meshes so they are a single mesh. Select the two cubes by selecting the first one and then shift selecting the second one. Notice the color change on the original cube in the viewport. It's now a red outline, and the most recent selected object is now in orange. This is similar to Maya's white and green selection order. This is important because many tools rely on order of selection to determine the outcome of a command. With these two cubes now selected, we can go into the Object menu, down to Join, or just press Ctrl J, and immediately you see both cubes are now orange, and if you look in the outliner, you see a single mesh once again. Now no matter which cube you select, Blender views this as the same mesh. Great. Now what about separating them? I don't see a separate command in the Object menu. That's because it's in the Edit menu. With the mesh selected, press Tab to toggle into Edit mode. Click on the Mesh menu at the top, and there you will see a separate command, or by pressing the P key. This will give you some options. I want the Separate by Loose Parts. And they are now separated. Toggle back into Object mode with the Tab key. You see once again, they are separate meshes in the viewport, and in the outliner as well. Because this is just an introduction to modeling video, I won't go over the literally hundreds of hours that you can spend modeling some very complex creations. The last tool, which is really a modifier before we go, is the Boolean modifier. Select the File menu, and then select New, and then General to create a brand new scene. We can keep the default cube as it is. Press Shift-A to bring up the Add menu, and then select Mesh/Cylinder. Move the cylinder off to the right a bit, and up in the Z direction just a bit, so it's overlapping the cube. The Boolean is a modifier, and is put onto the object that is being Booleaned. I'll show you. Select the cube. Click on the blue modifier wrench, and click on Add Modifier. Under Generate, click on Boolean. This attaches a Boolean modifier to the cube. Nothing happens yet, because we need to tell Blender what we are using to affect the cube. Click on the eyedropper in the Object field, then click on the cylinder in the viewport. Notice something happened. As we currently have difference selected in the modifier, it has cut out the cylinder from the cube. We can see this better if we hide the cylinder in the outliner. If we reshow the cylinder and move it around, we see that it cuts the cube live as we go. Let's hide the cylinder again. And now select the cube and select Intersect. This now is the common area of the two meshes. Select Union. Now both objects become one, fused where they are attached it. And finally back to difference. Notice the faceting on the cube piece. Right-clicking on the cube and selecting Auto Smooth does not seem to do anything. That's because the cube is being cut by the cylinder, which is still in flat shading mode. Unhide the cylinder, then right-click on it and select Shade Auto Smooth. Now rehide it, and there you go. You can leave this as a modifier or apply it to make it permanent. Alright, I think that's a good intro to get you started and excited about Blender's modeling abilities, which are quite vast and, well, impressive once you dive in deep. I hope you got something out of this video. If so, please like and subscribe. Also, please leave a note in the comments with any questions or things I could have done differently. Check out other videos on my YouTube channel. Best wishes to you. Now go create.